what's going on, y'all? It is your host here, the Lone Wolf. Um, we have quite a show for y'all tonight. We have some breaking news coming out of, well, every parts of the world today. Um, we also have, let me turn it down now. We also have breaking news coming out of Ukraine and Russia, y'all. We will be starting a poll. We do have a shout out, Kim Yoon Ju. I really appreciate the follow. Definitely appreciate it. Um, One second, I'm starting a poll real quick for y'all. So we got a poll out right now, going right now, y'all, on YouTube. um, it is, will Russia use nukes? And we're gonna get into that, y'all. We're gonna break it down for y'all about what's going on, um, and try to break it all down for y'all so y'all don't have to. Before we get started, y'all, make sure y'all please hit that bell button so y'all get notified whenever we come on air. And please, please push that follow or subscribe button so we start getting pushed out more and so we can actually start getting the news to everybody who really wants to hear the real news. Well, we have breaking news coming out of Washington where Trump did not sign um the housing bill. But the housing bill, the reason why he didn't sign it, because it's not lowering housing, it's gonna make it worse. And we're gonna get into that here in a little bit too as well. If we can get to that. But we do have one sec, y'all. Huh. I was just checking some news out real quick, y'all. Let me look up this.
That US struck Iranian military sites and Iran violated ceasefire once again. So that is what Donald Trump is claiming. Donald Trump has said that we hit Iran.
Um, my bad, y'all. I'm trying to get some more up to date news about what's going on.
Starting with the top story at the
All right, we're going to go with
Donald
this
Trump
one.
says.
Give me 1 second, y'all. One moment, please, and I will have it popped up for y'all. Well, if I can get it to work. Oh no, I don't want that one. 1 second, y'all. I apologize. So we are going to show y'all the footage of when Ukraine first started this assault just a week ago. Now we all seen the horrific sight. It's insane. Well, this is on the Iran and the United States situation. So just give me 1 second and I'll have this popped up for y'all. Yeah, not for sure what's going on with the
U.S. official that I spoke to, 4 targets were struck. 6 U.S. warplanes were involved in the strikes. The targets were along the Iranian coast bordering the Strait of Hormuz and Keshem Island. Shortly after 4 p.m. Eastern, the U.S. military began carrying out airstrikes on a...
All right, 1 second, y'all.
Thank you both so much. U.S. launching strikes on Iran tonight after cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz was attacked. President Trump calling Iran's strike on that vessel a foolish violation of the ceasefire. Fox News chief national security correspondent Jennifer Griffin has the details. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Charlie. According to a senior U.S. official that I spoke to, 4 targets were struck. 6 U.S. warplanes were involved in the strikes. The targets were along the Iranian coast bordering the Strait of Hormuz and Keshem Island. Eastern, the U.S. military began carrying out airstrikes on Iranian targets near the Strait of Hormuz in response to an Iranian drone strike on a commercial ship yesterday. The airstrikes involving U.S. warplanes lasted about 1 hour. U.S. Central Command issued the following statement, quote, U.S. forces conducted strikes against Iran as a powerful response to yesterday's attack on a commercial ship that was transiting the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. aircraft struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites after Iran hit MV Ever Lovely on June 25th with a one-way attack drone. The Singapore-flagged cargo ship was exiting the Strait of Hormuz along the Omani coast at the time of Iran's attack, according to CENTCOM. The U.S. force posture in the Middle East has stayed the same since the Memorandum of Understanding was signed with the Iranians earlier this month. There are more than 25 warships and 50,000 U.S. service members in the Middle East right now, along with 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, 17 guided missile destroyers, and the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, along with more than a dozen air squadrons at sea. After tonight's strikes, a number of threats of retaliation were put out in the name of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps on social media. But Charlie, Iran's state-run media, Fars News Agency, says those threats of escalation are fake. Vice President J.D. Vance, the lead negotiator of the tenuous MOU, put out on social media the following, quote, Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. We have honored it. If they have disagreements about how the MOU is being applied, they can pick up the phone. But violence will be met with violence. Charlie?
Mess around and find out. Jennifer, thank you so much. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Now, you heard it. I mean, I'm just saying, that's not coming from me. That's coming from the news station. But anyways, like I said, we have a lot to go over today. So, further ado, let's get to the news.
And tonight we have absolute mayhem erupting across the Middle East. It seems like things are really getting bad as of right now. But we are seeing that the U.S. attacks apparently have been taking place on Iranian forces near Hormuz today. Very large airstrikes on Iran's coast, and that was just hours ago. We're also seeing that Iran is now striking Kuwait and Bahrain as gunfire is also erupting at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq. And right now that situation is unfolding as we speak. And also, NATO is now warning of a Russian false flag attack that may be coming soon to start a war with NATO in the next few months. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news from around the world as major developments, absolutely breaking developments, have been occurring both within the Middle East and East Asia also Eastern Europe over the course of this day. We have been able to hear of significant developments within the Middle East as before we got on air, the Islamic Republic of Iran had just rounded out a new wave of drone and missile attacks against U.S. bases, facilities, and forces within the nations of Bahrain and Kuwait. We also were able to see that those were met earlier in the day by U.S. strikes that were conducted against more Iranian naval facilities along the entirety of the Strait of Hormuz, with significant strikes being reported from Bandar el-Araq all the way to Sarik, largely the coastline of the Strait of Hormuz from east to west. Right now, the United States president is threatening a regime change within the Islamic Republic of Iran, while the Iranians are also threatening that they will conduct such destruction against the United States and its forces and also create such a grievous embarrassment for the United States that the U.S. would have wished that they had never run into Iran or had never been present within the Middle East, showing us that the rhetoric by both sides is beginning to depart from the peace deals and the negotiations that have been attempted, and it now appears that we're returning back into a state of war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. At the same time, we've also been able to hear that a significant firefight and a major development is now happening within the green zone of the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, as Iraqi special forces and army units have been deployed en masse. Nearly an entire brigade or more have been deployed into the green zone in Baghdad to apparently deal with some sort of an attempted uprising that was either attempting to overthrow the Iraqi government in a coup or to try and attack the U.S. embassy within the area. Significant footage and pictures have come out showing these deployments within the area of Baghdad, and it does appear that the situation is still continuing to transpire as we're live on air right now, and we'll mostly be getting breaking news developments out of that here incredibly soon from the green zone in Baghdad. We've also been able to see that Hezbollah forces or Hezbollah supporters within Beirut are still largely continuing to create a state of civil unrest, or largely what can be described as lawlessness within the city of Beirut, as they have continued their campaigns in support of Hezbollah and against the Lebanese government. Additionally, Israeli air forces did conduct strikes today within the area of the Gaza Strip, and another ceasefire has been entered into between Hezbollah and the Israelis, and the Israelis said that this might turn into something, but we're waiting for someone to start shooting at each other in between Hezbollah and Israel. It's definitely going to be happening within the next 12 hours. We've also been able to hear outside of the Middle East that in the midst of everything going on within that region, in Ukraine, the situation has become what can only be described as absolutely grotesque, and what the Ukrainians have been able to inflict against the Russians with their long-range strikes so far. Currently, today is day 2 of the 40-day strike campaign that Zelensky authorized just several days ago against the Russian Federation to inflict such terrific damage against the Russian Federation that they would be forced to the negotiating table because they would have no other choice. At this moment, right now, Ukrainian FP5 Flamingos have landed and slammed into the Slovyansk na Kubani refinery, largely knocking it out, and we believe that it's going to be rendering the facility inoperable until the next year. And we've also seen that other significant strikes and attacks have been conducted elsewhere throughout the Russian Federation. Multiple videos in the dozens have been coming out from the Russian Federation showing that largely all national logistics have screeched to a halt as of today, as it does not appear that there are any more fuel resources to spread around the Russian Federation or its starved oblasts, which now appear to be in a crisis situation nationwide. We've also seen that the occupied territories, including Crimea, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson, are still in absolutely desperate situations as Ukrainian long-range drone attacks attacks have been causing even further damage to Russian supply lines, Russian supply forces, and the Ukrainians are now going out of their way to target the Russians' only attempted defense against the drone attacks, the mobile fire groups, and have also been destroying those in large numbers as well throughout the day, still leaving the convoys of supplies stripped entirely of any defenses and leaving them to be destroyed at the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been inflicting significant casualties over the course of the day as well, and have stopped any Russian advances along the entirety of the front. We've also seen that major strikes were landed across the border in Shebekino on significant storage facilities for the Russian armed forces operating within the Vovchansk front, which appear to be jeopardizing. We've also seen that Alexander Lukashenko appears to be missing now and has been inside of Russia for about 2 days. We have not heard of his return to Belarus, and it appears that at the moment either serious discussions are being held between the Russian Federation and the Republic of Belarus about Belarus's potential entry into the conflict against Ukraine, or we are seeing that there is a significant apprehension by Lukashenko, and Putin may be, in a larger effect, holding Lukashenko hostage inside the Russian Federation to try and make him see the Putin side of reasoning and to get Belarus involved in the conflict one way or another. The Foreign Minister of Poland, Sikorski, has also stated that there is a significant risk, as been shown by Polish intelligence, that there may be an attack by the Russian Federation on Poland or other border NATO states on the eastern NATO frontier within the near future. But with all of that out of the way, we have to get into the breaking news that is now happening here on air right now. And Matthew, I see that we have breaking news coming out, and what do we got?
Okay, so right now we have a lot of stuff going on, by the way. So we're going to be jumping from story to story tonight, trying to cover this as it's happening. A lot of stuff's already taken place. We've seen the strikes happen on Iran's coast by U.S. airstrikes. That's been happening hours ago. And since then, absolute mayhem has broken out in the Middle East. We've seen Bahrain and Kuwait come under attack, but we've also seen a developing situation. It's literally unfolding right now at this very minute inside of Baghdad, Iraq. That's the capital city of Iraq right now, in the Green Zone, which is home to the U.S. Embassy. We are currently seeing videos of what appears to be counter-terrorism forces rushing the residential complex right next to the U.S. Embassy. We're not entirely sure what is going on there right now. We've seen loads of tanks rolling through the streets of Baghdad, also a whole bunch of Humvees and military equipment going around the area of the embassy. Something is definitely going down. Right now, it's believed to be that the Iraqi security forces are arresting pro-Iran supporters. That's what's believed to be happening, but there's also some rumors out there that maybe there's a Sunni-backed coup that might be taking place inside of Iraq right now, and they're trying to put that down. Right now, it's really unknown really what's happening, but it's mayhem right now. But Enforcer, can you walk us through this situation? Because I'm getting live updates about it right now.
It appears that at the moment we are getting some form of a Iraqi special forces and military policing action that is now happening within the Green Zone due to an attempted military or paramilitary action that appears to be conducted or was attempted to be conducted by Sunni-backed militias that are inside of the capital. There is a significant amount of pro-Iranian activities and militias that operate inside of the Republic of Iraq, and we do know that a large amount of them operate out of the southern areas of the city, close to the area of Dora and Al-Zafraniya, which we have seen in prior times throughout the years, being stricken by U.S. airstrikes and Israeli airstrikes to be able to try and target and knock out top militia leaders within the Republic of Iraq. We also know that some government officials also have significant involvement as well with these pro-Iranian and pro-Sunni military groups, and we understand that at least at the moment, the one thing we can confirm is that one of these groups has just attempted to spring into action, either to conduct a bombing or an attack on the U.S. Embassy within the Baghdad Green Zone, or to possibly attempt a government coup or a government overthrow within the Republic of Iraq against the Republic of Iraq's government to create or form some sort of a Sunni-led dictatorship within the country. At the moment, we understand that Iraqi military forces are responding heavily and have been deployed in a swarm onto the Green Zone at this moment, and this one video here is probably one of the best that we've seen so far of what appears to be some sort of an Iraqi special police or forces team moving in to arrest one of these suspected individuals involved in this situation, and gunfights have also broken out within the capital of Baghdad as well, as we have gotten eyewitness reports of that situation.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. Like, this situation in Baghdad, there is a lot more to this situation than meets the eye, because the sheer amount of tanks, I mean, if you scroll down a little bit, Enforcer, you'll see the picture of some of these tanks rolling through the streets right now, and also Humvees rolling through the streets too. There's one of the Abrams apparently rolling through the streets right there, but there's another picture. Go to the Twitter page and go to the timeline right now. and you'll see that there's an image showing all the Humvees and tanks. There it is right here. I mean, there's a little bit more going on here than meets the eye. This is a little bit more, in my opinion, than just purely arrest that the Iraqis are making. It seems like there could be something worse happening, but of course we don't know that for a fact yet. But this is a large deployment that we're looking at right now. So the main thing is, though, this is still going on. For it to be merely arrest, whatever is happening is still active at this very moment. And also, some more breaking news. We just got this right now, apparently. The situation with the attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait by Iranian forces is apparently still unfolding, according to U.S. officials. So we had seen that missiles were lobbed at U.S. bases in those countries. Now we're hearing that apparently that is not over at the moment. So we might be getting more updates about another wave of attacks very soon about that whole situation there. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that this is a wild development at this point. We still have some good amounts of information to cover and developments that we've seen in the Green Zone before we even get on into what appears to be continued Iranian strikes against U.S. forces inside of Bahrain and Kuwait. But to suffice to say, at this moment right now, the Middle East appears to have exploded in activity when over the past several days we've seen largely a lack of activity. But it appears that most of this has been spurred by an Iranian attack against a Singaporean-flagged commercial ship, which was hit 2 days ago within the Strait of Hormuz, which then led to a U.S. retaliatory strike against the Islamic Republic of Iran inside the Strait of Hormuz, which then led to another Iranian attack today on another commercial ship that was attempting to pass through the Hormuz, which led to a second attack by the United States on Iran, which happened today in the middle of the day. And now we have seen that the Iranian counterattack has been conducted now against U.S. forces in Bahrain and Kuwait. And we're now seeing that some sort of a major development is happening within the capital of Baghdad, most likely by Sunni affiliated or most likely IRGC affiliated militias, which are now attempting to spring into action to conduct some form of terrorism or possibly a government overthrow within the capital of Iraq. To get us through a little bit more of the Iraq news and the Baghdad situation, considering that we might be getting a lot more developments rapidly out of this area of Baghdad, we have been able to see a large amount of pictures showing that heavy armor units, apparently an armor brigade, has been deployed into the Green Zone with M1A1 Abrams of the Iraqi export variant being moved into the area. And we also were able to see one of these rapidly advancing down the street into the Green Zone in this clip right here. That's about full speed for an Abrams. So they are moving at full clip to just move as many forces as possible into the area of the Green Zone as quickly as possible, which is showing us that whatever is happening is apparently an emergency situation, and it is believed that there may be significant armed confrontations that are soon to follow because of the large deployment of armored forces within the city. We've also been able to see as well more videos coming out from the Green Zone, quite a large number of them as a matter of fact, showing more of the developments that are now happening within Baghdad right now live on air. We were able to see what appears to be some sort of a convoy of Iraqi armed forces moving into the area of the Green Zone on this highway overpass in this clip. A significant convoy, most likely a company-sized element or several companies moving in at a single time.
Yeah, also, I mean, this is a hell of a lot of forces here just to arrest a couple of guys, if that's allegedly what they're doing. I mean, do you really need a whole paramilitary force, or really just the military force itself, to have to roll into the Green Zone just to arrest a handful of people? That doesn't seem very likely to me.
It doesn't really seem likely to me either. And this is why, folks, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye right now in Iraq, and we're trying to piece together what's really led to this happening. But some sort of a code red has been activated in the Iraqi government for them to start deploying entire brigades of manpower from the Iraqi army directly into the Green Zone at this point, which is giving us an idea that either a Sunni attempted coup was being conducted, and while we have heard of some limited skirmishes and firefights in the Green Zone, it may be expected there was a large number of fighters present, and so basically a large battle would be unfolding in the middle of the city, requiring a large amount of manpower. Or we're seeing that they were about to conduct some form of an act of terrorism or just start causing chaos throughout the area in these IRGC-affiliated Iraqi militias, and for that reason, they still required a humongous amount of manpower to be moved directly into the Green Zone to be able to deal with that sort of a threat. We're not really sure which of them is true at the moment, and still that part of the story is very vague and it's coming out in small fragments, but it is a very interesting development to say the least. We've also been able to hear as well in other footage here the movement of more armed forces, including another M1A1 Abrams that was moving through the streets. We also have another clip here, once again showing that Abrams that we already showed before, and then a duplicate of the second clip that we just showed you all a moment ago. We've also been able to see as well of more deployments in the green zone, including that picture that we showed you all recently, and also Iranian special forces that appear to have been on the move in this clip. They appear to be moving in blacked out Humvees into the area of the green zone.
What was that flag flying in the back of one of them? It looked almost like an American flag.
Let's see, I believe that is the flag. That's the flag of the Republic of Iraq. It's red, white, and black.
Yeah, it was blurry the first time. It's clearly that. Yeah, I see it now.
But we see the Special Forces units moving in with their blacked out vehicles, very distinct from the normal Iraqi army, which we've seen in all of the prior clips. And moving us on from that clip to show you all further developments within Baghdad, we've also been able to see that clip as well, largely a duplicate once more. But moving us on into other information that we had, we were able to see this picture, which we've also shown prior, of several M1 Abrams and also Humvees, apparently of the army of Iraq, moving into the green zone and setting up what appears to be a roadblock or a checkpoint in the streets in this picture, or the beginning of one, which may be showing that the situation is incredibly dangerous. And we've also been able to hear as well of special forces raids that were conducted, and apparently we've also been able to get some larger reports at the moment that apparently there has been some sporadic firefights, although we don't have video evidence or audible evidence of that yet, that happened in the green zone between this group that the special forces were moving in against, or the counterterrorism service, and the group that they were fighting. But we did get a brief clip apparently from one of these units right here. It looks like they might actually be using that house as a basing point for further operations in the green zone.
Yeah, it could be actually. But also in the meantime, by the way, outside of the Iraq news we have right now about what's going on in the green zone in Baghdad, which certainly there's a much bigger story going on there than we're currently hearing about. But we're also getting some more word as well, just jumping ahead just slightly here, about the attacks that we've seen earlier that were conducted between Iran and the U.S. forces. Apparently, during those strikes, it's being said now that according to U.S. officials, that naval assets were apparently targeted in the Strait of Hormuz from the looks of it. So it's sounds like the U.S. Navy might have come under attack from the Iranians earlier during that attack. So that's pretty big news there.
That is really big news, and we're actually about to be getting into that news right here, folks. I want to make sure to wrap this up with some of the information that we have at the moment, that according to an Iraqi Telegram channel, Naya, they claim that a special source for Naya has stated that there's been arrest of 3 important political leaders in the green zone of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, and a shooting incident did occur within the green zone of the capital. According to a little bit additional information that we got, at least recently, I believe that we have been able to hear that Iraqi security forces have reportedly carried out a wave of high-profile arrests, taking several prominent political figures into custody. Among those reportedly detained is Mohammed al-Habousi, who is Iraq's most influential Sunni leader and a former Speaker of Parliament, which is giving us an idea that whatever is happening in the green zone is most likely Sunni-affiliated, considering that he is one of the people who has been allegedly arrested at this moment right now. The reason behind the arrest remain unclear. There have been arrests, and it's believed that he may be one of the arrested, but once again, folks, we're still waiting for further confirmation, and we will be waiting for an official government statement by the Republic of Iraq, as they will most likely issue a written statement very soon as to the situation that's unfolding in Baghdad and what exactly has gone down. It does appear that everyone's on the same page, however, that at least 3 political figures have been arrested within Baghdad at this moment, with one of the names of the arrested possibly being Mohammed al-Habousi, but we're not incredibly sure if he is one of the people who's been arrested yet. We're going to be waiting for further confirmation on that. Moving us on out of Baghdad, however, we do have to move on to the also incredibly large development that's happening just to the southeast of the city of Baghdad, inside of the Persian Gulf. And we have been able to see that at this moment right now, the Islamic Republic of Iran is still conducting a retaliatory attack against the United States of America inside of Bahrain and Kuwait. Picture evidence came out just minutes before we came on air, showing further air defense activities over the area of Kuwait, and we also were able to get a report from Kuwait just about an hour before we went on air of the following. The Kuwaiti air defenses are currently responding to hostile missile and drone attacks. The General Staff of the Army states that any explosion sounds are the results of interceptions. They also urge the public to follow all safety instructions issued by the Kuwaiti governmental and military authorities during this time, confirming that there is an ongoing attack against the Kingdom of Kuwait, and we believe that the attacks are most likely going to be attempting to target the Ali Al Salim Air Base, which is a significant basing and operational point for U.S. forces within the Kingdom of Kuwait, and also Camp Buhring further on and up in the north, up here, which is also a significant basing for the U.S. Army and other units, which also are based out of Kuwait as well. These two facilities have come under heavy attack in prior instances of Iranian strikes inside of Kuwait, and so we would largely believe that attacks are being initiated against those facilities once again. In Bahrain, we've also been able to hear a very similar story that once again, the Bahrainis have come under attack recently, just about 10 hours after they denounced the last round of attacks that apparently did happen yesterday, yet none of the drones or missiles made it into the area of Bahrain's airspace to actually be documented or reported on here on the show. But the Bahrainis did denounce the prior attack from yesterday, giving confirmation that the Iranians did launch an attack, but apparently from what we can tell, none of their drones or missiles even made it close to the impact sites or over the countries that were being fired upon. However, as of this moment right now, sirens have been activated in Bahrain, including in Manama, and the Bahraini Minister of the Interior has stated the alarm sirens have been activated. We urge citizens and residents to remain calm, head to the nearest safe location, and follow updates through official channels. We also saw additional reports that apparently this time explosions have been heard in Bahrain. We are not entirely sure where, but we would assume that it's most likely within the northern area, as most missiles and drone impacts within the area of the Bahraini state usually occur within the northern areas north of Hamad town and in between there and Manama.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Also, it's believed to be that the targets inside of Bahrain, the main target of the Iranian attack was the Sheikh Isa Air Base, apparently, or the Isa Air Base. It's kind of hard to pronounce, by the way, but it's one that has been targeted several times before by the Iranians. Apparently, this is the location right here, and there was allegedly an explosion heard within the vicinity of this air base, but it's not known right now what the damage is to the spot. But there were explosions heard here, but once again, it could be people hearing the air defense explosions. It could be interceptions that people are mistaking for ground impacts. We simply don't know.
And I would have to say it is a wild situation that is going on at the moment. And this is one of the targets that has been attempted to hit, will be hit prior. And we've also seen that a ridge line within the area, which houses a U.S. radar system that it allows for early warnings of Iranian attacks, may also be targeted as well, as it is very close to the vicinity of the Isa Air Base, which we can see here in the southern part of the island of Bahrain. We've also been able to hear some additional news as well from the area, confirming that 9 drones apparently were shot down after they were launched by Iranian forces earlier in the day, which also shows us that this attack has been going on for hours at this point, at least against Bahrain. We were going to cover this as a breaking news stream and go live when it's happening, but these little waves of attacks are largely fairly sporadic and they happen very quickly. So we're probably going to see a couple of more occurring while we're live on air, but it doesn't really appear that we'll be expecting an endless slew of breaking news coming out in real time like in usual attacks. It appears that the U.S. and Iran are getting back into a wartime footing, which we're about to be getting into in depth once we cover the Hormuz news, which rhymes, funnily enough. But once we get into the Hormuz news, we're going to be covering how the U.S. and Iran are now departing from the peace negotiations and a memorandum of understanding and appear to be returning back to a full-time war footing because both sides appear to be threatening each other that it's going to be the end of everything because of what's transpired over the course of this day. But before we move on into the Strait of Hormuz, I do want to make sure to talk about what we have been able to hear so far about the U.S. attacks on the Iranian coast that have caused the Iranians to target Bahrain like we're talking about right now. And a lot of people are putting in their thoughts and comments on what the situation is going to be looking like within the next few days, whether full-scale war is going to return to the region or whether the talks are going to be continuing. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we did see earlier. Also, by the way, have we covered the U.S. attacks on the coast yet? It's probably pertinent to probably get to that first if we haven't.
Not yet. I was gonna save that for the rest of it because I would have to basically cover all of it to get to the poll. So I just want to make sure to get to the poll first because we got like 12 bulletins down there right now.
Okay, well, we're going to get to it in just a second, but the U.S. forces launched significant attacks along Iran's coast near the Hormuz area, which caused Iran to attack Bahrain and Kuwait in response to that, and that just happened hours ago. So what are your thoughts? Where is this going to go at this point? Because right now we're seeing that mayhem's erupting. There's counterattacks by Iran, U.S. forces attacking the Iranian coast. It's literally a free-for-all at this point. So 51% said full-scale war will resume in days, and it's pretty much in the cards at this point. 22% said talks will continue and the MOU is still in effect, oddly enough. 21% said it's too early to tell right now. So one thing is clear at this point. For the last 3 days straight, there have been nonstop provocations and attacks being exchanged between Iranian and U.S. forces. So that's for 3 days at this point, which clearly indicates things are heating up and they're not de-escalating. So the Iranians are out there running at the mouth like crazy. The U.S. is now issuing threats to eliminate the Iranian regime. That threat was just made about 2 hours ago by the U.S. president. So, I mean, at this point, I think the ceasefire is not ceasefiring. I think at this point, it might be ineffective, and that's kind of being a little bit sarcastic here. I don't think the talks will continue for much longer because it'll be impossible to continue them under these circumstances. So we'll get to those threats here very shortly and also the attacks, but I think y'all will probably agree with me that full-scale war appears to be back on the menu. And it's weird, though, because we're in a bit of a dilemma here because right now, the Senate and the Congress in the United States is kind of on the fence about whether or not war is approved or not with the Iran situation. I think currently they're kind of in favor of it, but it's really shaky though. So it's kind of a weird spot we're in right now, but I think war's coming. But Enforcer, what say you?
It is a very odd spot that we're in as far as the political machine is concerned at home, because it really could go either way at this point, to where they allow the president to conduct any hostilities without even requiring the approval of the Congress, or you may see that the Congress requires for it to be run through them to give the yes vote or the no vote on continuing any hostilities against the Islamic Republic of Iran. But I would have to say, generally, I would be with the 51%. A resumption of the conflict has to happen. It is an inevitable certainty of the situation that we're seeing, and we will have to return to the fighting at some point here in the near future. And so going off of the obvious answer, I would say I'm with the 51%, that full-scale war will have to resume within days, or may have to resume at some point outside of the next few days, because it is the only option forward. The Islamic Republic of Iran has shown in all rounds of talks that we've conducted so far during the period of the Memorandum of Understanding that they are not willing to follow through with most any talks with the United States of America in good faith. We have asked them about their nuclear program. They've stated that the nuclear program is how it is.
Every
the U.S.
day
can
your
take it
data
or
is
leave
being
it.
tracked.
We've asked them about a multitude of other things, and they've also made the same answer. We're not changing anything of ours. If anything, you give us what we want,
Collected
and we're
and
going
sold.
to keep our position as
Often
is.
without you even
Being that the
realizing
Iranians
it.
are warning each other that it's going to be the demands, end of which will put the everything. United States at a significant strategic disadvantage. And because of that, the United States of America would have to go back into the conflict and would have to continue the fight against the Islamic Republic of Iran to be able to see that the Strait of Hormuz's blockade is eventually broken, and that the United States of America is able to be put into a favorable position strategically to be able to actually round out the conflict, either by a negotiated settlement or by the Islamic Republic of Iran's Islamic regime collapsing in real time due to the U.S. military pressure and also the Iranian loss of the Strait of Hormuz. Either way, the conflict would have to begin again, and I think that as of today, especially what we've seen in the Strait, which we're about to be getting into here in a minute, and the statements that have been made by both sides, it looks like from the publicized statements that we're seeing today and the actions, it looks like we're getting into a full-blown conflict with the Iranians for a second go-around. But moving us on and into the area of the Strait of Hormuz, we have been able to see that earlier in the day today, the Islamic Republic of Iran did conduct an attack against a second merchant ship earlier this morning. According to the UK MTO, the master of a tanker is reported being struck by an unidentified projectile. The vessel sustained damage to their bridge, and all crew were reported safe. No environmental damage was reported at present. According to what we understand, the vessel was called the Kiku, if I'm not mistaken, Kiku, and it was flagged out of the nation of Panama. This is the second strike that the Islamic Republic of Iran has conducted on a commercial vessel attempting passage through the Strait of Hormuz, and once again, the attack was conducted while the ship was entering the Omani shipping lane through the strait and attempting to enter through Oman, well, it will largely exit the Strait of Hormuz via Omani waters instead of the pre-approved Iranian routes. The IRGC did conduct an attack just like they did yesterday against this vessel, and the United States did announce that they were going to be making a response once more. A significant amount of aerial tankers were present within the area, more than could be counted. It was almost a dozen of them, and we did get to see that following this large deployment of these tankers into the region, reports of strikes once again began to emerge on the area of Surik. We've also been able to hear that strikes were also conducted on the island of Kashim and also in Bandar-e-Lenga, which is on the very western side of the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz. According to the reports by the IRIB news agency in Bandar Abbas, they quoted an informed source in Bandar-Lenga. 4 projectiles hit the Bandar-Lenga area at 45 minutes past midnight, and the sound of these explosions were heard in Bandar-Lenga and Bandar Kong. Additionally, we also were able to see that the island of Kashim also was hit as well, and the 3 strike locations was Bandar-Lenga, Kashim, and Surik. We also were able to get
those locations there. Go back to that map for just a second. You were showing of the strike locations real quick. Y'all might notice that those locations have been hit several times. I think Andrew noted this last night when we were going over this on the stream last night. These locations have been hit throughout the war several times over. It's kind of weird they're hitting the same spots again today for the second time in a row. They're hitting those exact same spots. And what do you make of that?
I make of it as the prior strikes were actually not successful in achieving their goals of either knocking out these facilities or destroying these forces. Or the other way that we can take this, because there's multiple ways we can take this sort of stuff, folks, because we don't know what exactly it is at the moment. Or they're hitting the same targets that they already knocked out just to save face and to make a show of force without conducting any real, literal damage against the Iranians further than the prior strikes that we already conducted. So it's probably one or the other.
Yeah, maybe so. I was looking here right now to see what the U.S. officials are saying about that. It looks like it appears to be a Fox News reporter actually asked that question to U.S. officials, and allegedly the U.S. officials responded that that Iran has reconstituted their air defense forces on the coast, the missile systems, and yeah, here it is right here from Jennifer Griffin on Fox News. The U.S. officials are saying that Iran has brought their missile systems back online on the Iranian coast, and that's why they're striking these sites again. So it sounds to me like Iran's been using this down period here of no attacks and no strikes during this MOU agreement to bring in more missile-based defenses. What it sounds like to me.
Sounds like it to me. And you know what's crazy, man, is I think we said that on air, that they were going to be using this sort of a downtime period to be able to rebuild their abilities for the next round of fighting, because it's going to be inevitable, because they're not going to agree to anything that we want or even meet us in the middle. So it looks like the Iranians are doing exactly what we thought, at least according to U.S. officials. There is also another thing that I have to point out, though, about this is that while some of their missile abilities and maybe drone attack abilities have been reconstituted along the coastline, we've never really seen a degradation of their abilities along the coastline at any given point. The U.S. has conducted a significant amount of small-in strikes in literally once-off attacks over the past few months against the Islamic Republic of Iran in the Strait of Hormuz, and amid all of those strikes, the IRGC would pop right back up in the strait and attack as many commercial ships as they wanted in really any number at any time of day, which is leading me to believe that the claims made by U.S. officials that the Iranians have reconstituted their anti-ship capabilities to largely be false, or to try and make it seem like these strikes actually have a purpose and they're hitting something of value. We haven't seen a concerted U.S. air campaign against any Iranian forces inside the Strait of Hormuz that would be significant enough or broad enough to be able to cause damage, to be able to knock out the Iranian anti-ship capabilities and also their ability to protect the minefield that they've laid inside the Strait of Hormuz. I think, if anything, much like we saw with the Surik strikes yesterday, these strikes today are once again hitting targets that have already been hit before and have largely been knocked out, and just hitting them over and over again on the same spot at the same location to make it look like the U.S. is really hitting something and doing damage, but we're not really hitting anything additionally or causing any further damage than we had already done in the past. That's what I'm generally thinking at this point.
It seems to be the case because also in the U.S. President's Truth Social post that he put out a few hours back, he had stated that the U.S. forces struck Iranian missile, drone storage locations, and coastal radar sites for violating the ceasefire agreement. So those targets right there are the same targets that's been hit in all the prior attacks that we've seen the U.S. forces conduct on the Iranian coast. All of these right here have been hit yet again. So it's nothing really novel. Like these strikes are obviously larger than the last ones that we just saw yesterday. But I mean, these targets aren't exactly new.
Yeah, they're not entirely new at all. And also on top of that, this kind of goes against the president's own claims that everyone in the media, including us, is just lying to bring him down. Because according to his own claims, all of their anti-ship missile capabilities, their surface-to-air capabilities, their Navy, Air Force, Army, and everything else has been completely destroyed where they don't stand a chance. So I don't really know if that's true. If we were taking the president as saying something is true, which would be quite rare these days, it's a little bit odd for him to say that and then also say that they're blowing up missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites when it's already been claimed that they've done that prior. So that's a little bit odd to me. And I think that's starting to show us that, once again, the Iranians have a larger amount of abilities and have been able to preserve them because of a lack of a larger U.S. strategy to try and target or strike any of these forces within the Strait of Hormuz. And it looks like that's still the case at the moment right now, that the Iranians are still controlling the area. We've also been able to see additionally that a warning was put out today within the Strait by the UK MTO, showing the GPS coordinates and actually marking them on a map of what is believed to be the active minefield. And according to this statement, the maritime security threat level in the Strait of Hormuz has increased to substantial, which is the highest threat level that can be issued by the UK MTO, following attacks on merchant vessels. Mariners are advised of the existence of mines and should expect naval presence as clearance operations continue. Mariners should also expect congestion through transit routes and VHF hailing from naval forces to support free flow. Mariners are advised that the southern route has been expanded to accommodate simultaneous inbound and outbound traffic. Transits along waypoints to the following routes have been safely used for passage, which are the following coordinates. Meaning that the area right now, largely if we were to actually map this out, it isn't a circle, it's largely a giant rectangle of a sort that exists between the Iranian shipping routes that have been pre-approved to the north, which have been proven safe, and the Omani route to the south, which is basically hugging the coastline within just a few miles of the shoals and rocks that make up the Omani coastline within this area. Everything in between is still believed to be an active minefield, and we don't really know how many mines are out there even at this moment right now. We've seen that a large amount of IRGC boats during their campaigns have laid mines inside of the strait, and we believe that the number is most likely in the hundreds at this moment. It seems that some sort of demining operations have been conducted by some minesweepers or mine clearers to make the area of safe coastal waters around Oman just slightly large enough to allow for inbound and outbound traffic, but this also ought to be giving many people an idea that this sort of mine clearing operation is as slow as we anticipated. They have only been able to clear out probably about 2 nautical miles north from the Omani coast than they originally had pre-cleared over the past several weeks, which is showing that mine clearing is going at an increasingly slow pace, which is going to be meaning that this minefield will exist for largely months until it's completely demined, even in perfect or ideal conditions. We actually are hearing that more breaking news is coming out at this moment. And Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so let's jump away from the situation with the Iran attacks and also the counterattacks by Iran on the Gulf states. But right now we are hearing some more details about the situation in Iraq. And it does appear that there's definitely more going on here than simple arrests. Right now we're hearing that the Iraqi special forces are continuing to arrest Iraqi politicians inside the Green Zone. And that's significant because the Green Zone is home to the Iraqi governmental buildings, the government itself, and also the foreign embassies, such as the U.S. Embassy itself. So that's not a good sign right there. Also, apparently the Iraqi security forces are allegedly raiding the headquarters of some of the major Sunni political movements, suggesting that some of these people are being targeted by the Iraqi security forces. So I'm seeing a lot of people speculating that there might be a coup that's taking place inside of Iraq. I want to say that we cannot verify that. I want to make that very clear that we cannot 100% verify that at the moment, but it does appear that it's it's plausible at least that something of that magnitude could be going down as we speak. So not really sure what to make of it. Also, by the way, we're even seeing Iraqi counterterrorism forces being deployed in the Al Yarmouk neighborhood in western Baghdad as well. These security forces are going all over the place inside of Baghdad right now, and they're arresting people everywhere. So either this is a coordinated operation to eliminate some pro-Iran voices, possibly by the Iraqis, or we could be witnessing the beginning of a coup that we're seeing right here. Enforcer, what do you make of that?
It could be that they've uncovered a plot of a coup that has now failed, and they're acting before the coup can take place because it might have been found out by maybe some sort of a mole or a whistleblower that there were clear and evident plans of a Sunni-led coup against the government, and because of that, the Iraqi government found out that there was only about days left to act, and so they're jumping into action now and trying to pounce on them before they can actually attempt their coup against the Iraqi government, because this situation could be very fragile if they give any time to the Sunni-led uprising or coup attempt, because if they launch their coup attempt first before the army can react, then that means that everyone else is going to be in the confusion and chaos of an ongoing coup and figuring out what's going on, how to even react, and there's going to be really no concerted or coordinated coordination or control of the army at that point, meaning that the coup would most likely succeed. So it looks like they've uncovered a coup plot and they're crushing it before it could even kick off, from what I can tell.
Yeah, that could be. Also, by the way, sadly, I can't show the video here on the stream as it's watermarked by a Russian news source right here. But I am seeing a video right now where you can hear like a gun battle taking place near the green zone in Baghdad right now. And that was the gunfire that was reported about an hour ago inside the area of Baghdad near the green zone. So a gun battle like that sounds to be a lot more serious than just an arrest. So we'll keep a sharp eye on that. But right now, between the gunfire, the tanks rolling through the streets, the mass arrests taking place, and also obviously the green zone's in chaos right now, which is usually pretty civil for the most part. This is definitely something to watch, and we'll keep watching it throughout the stream tonight.
I also think we could say clearly that whatever this is a Sunni-led action in Iraq that the Iraqi government's going up against, which is giving us an idea that this mostly has a great deal of pro-Iranian sentiments involved in whatever group is being pounced on by the Iraqi government right now. Most of the Sunni-affiliated population in Islam inside of Iraq largely are very sympathetic or are actively involved in IRGC militia operations within the Republic of Iraq, which has been well documented on our channel over the years. So it looks like whatever was about to be conducted, the Iranians might have been trying to support a pro-Iranian coup inside of Iraq. And actually, it looks like we have even more breaking news coming out right now. So what do we got?
All right, so I had no idea the Iraq story was going to be at the top of our list tonight, but this might be our biggest headline news of the night right now. We are getting word that GPS interference has just started in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, which is usually a precursor to aircraft activities in the area. So we could be seeing possibly fighter jets become active in the area, and they could be jamming to start those operations. We're also getting word as well from Iraq's news sources here that there's been news of a raid on the home of, allegedly, the former finance minister, and also it's being stated that there's a complete closure of the residential complex opposite the U.S. Embassy. There is no entry or exit, neither by car or on foot, and absolutely no exceptions at all. So there's definitely something going on. I mean, they're arresting people left and right. It sounds to me like they're trying to take out a political party. I'm not sure who's doing the taking out here, but there is definitely some politically motivated operation with these arrests that's taking place right now. So, Enforcer, what do you make of that news?
It looks like I'm trying to get some information on Taif Sami, because it appears that Taif Sami Mohammed, if this is the name of the person who has actually been arrested, was a former minister of finance within the Republic of Iraq, pictured here, which was the minister of, the financial minister of Iraq up until apparently late 2022, if I'm not mistaken, which it does appear that that is the case. Actually, hold up, wait a minute. Actually, they have been in office since the 27th of October, 2022. They're actually still the sitting Minister of Finance within the Republic of Iraq.
We're not. It's it's saying here the former finance minister. So maybe they're saying that like sarcastically or something. But remember, folks, I want to emphasize this as well. By the way, we're currently going off reports that are coming out at the moment. This is all allegedly, by the way. It's being alleged these people have been arrested by some group inside of Iraq, but we'll have to wait for more confirmation to come out. So take it as you will as it's coming in. This is very early, very preliminary, and it's all alleged. So we'll have to take it like that.
Also, I would have to say, folks, that right now this is going to be classified here on the channel as an active coup attempt by most likely a Sunni-led group against the Republic of Iraq. And considering that it's a coup, I have to explain that historically coups are incredibly difficult to follow in real time, and they're extremely confusing. That's also what makes coups wildly successful if they get the jump, is that everybody in the government in Iraq, if the coup has started and for some reason this woman who's alleged to be arrested was now arrested by the coup leaders, this could start to become extremely confusing, and this is what leads to coups being wildly successful, is that everyone on the ground in Iraq isn't really going to have a clue of what's going on. They're just going to hear that someone was arrested over here, the army's moving over there, this other group's moving here, there was a firefight in the middle of the city, no one knows what's going on. It's wildly confusing. And so we might be getting a lot of fog of war in our reporting right now because of the confusion that's also permeating throughout Baghdad at the moment as to what exactly is happening. And there's probably only a few people who are in the know on everything that's going on and how it's unfolding in the city. But it is clear that at this point, it looks like there is either a failed coup attempt that the Iraqi government is crushing, or there is a coup attempt that is still in the process of attempting to overthrow the Iraqi government. We're not clear which, but we're going to be classifying this now as an attempted coup for the purposes of the news coverage and also our analysis from this point on. So I hope that does address that the best we can. We're going to be watching this situation very closely. There's probably going to be a lot of rapid updates that come out in the next few minutes, probably over the course of our whole show. And Matthew, do we have any more updates that have come out in the meantime?
So right now, nothing else at the very moment here. I'm just trying to get a grip on what's happening. Also, by the way, I see a lot of people saying we're getting Sunni mixed up with Shia, apparently, the two different factions there. Right now, they're saying it's Sunni. That's what they're claiming is going on right now, is apparently the Sunni. But once again, take that with a grain of salt. There could be a fog of war around it, but that's what they're claiming right now. So we'll simply have to see if it is Sunni or not. But yeah, at the moment, the biggest news is the GPS jamming started in the area. I am seeing some rumors, and take this with, of course, in the context of a rumor, that there's a lot of heightened radioactivity in the area, possibly amongst some of the factions within the area. But we'll have to see with that. Also, I see Enforcer saying Shia is Iran. Sorry. Yeah, Shia is the one that operates in Iran, or the one that is in charge of the Iran regime. They're generally Shia for the most part. And Sunni is generally anti-Iranian regime for the most part. But they're still saying Sunni, though. So I'm not sure if maybe people are getting them mixed up on their end as well, but that's what they're saying.
Well, I mean, if it's Sunnis that are getting arrested, considering, mind you all, that the Shias are actually the ones that make up the ranks of the RGC and the Iranian government, if it's the Sunnis getting arrested, this could be an attempted crackdown by the Shias to try and bring forward a more friendly government in Iraq to Iran. Possibly. It's very unclear at this moment. We know that there's an active coup going on, or an attempted coup that's happening right now. We don't know which it is at the moment, but it is quite a rapidly developing situation. That's all we can say right now, and we're just going to have to keep watching the developments as they come out live on air, which they're certainly going to be, because this has only just started inside of Iraq, basically when we went live, and it doesn't look like it's dying down at the moment right now. Honestly, I really want to put that in the title, that there is a coup going on in Iraq. You know what? Let me change the title here really quickly. I'm going to change it to...
I wouldn't change it. I would leave it the way it is for now, because I wouldn't change it yet. That might be a little too preemptive.
I mean, it's definitely something. Like, it's definitely a coup, or an attempted coup that's happened right now. It's getting pretty obvious at this point. But anyways, moving us on out of Iraq and back into the Strait of Hormuz to move on into the rest of the news that we were able to get from here, and returning back to where we were, the minefield does clearly exist within the area of the Strait of Hormuz, which is right where we were just a second ago. The U.S. did conduct their strikes against naval facilities around the entirety of the Strait of Hormuz, and we actually did get some footage of this provided by CENTCOM, showing strikes that were apparently conducted over the broader area around the strait. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to geolocate some of these clips, but we're believing that all of them come from the island of Kashim, Bandar Linga, and Sarik. This one appears to have come from the area of the Sarik naval facility. We also see more strikes being conducted right here as well. And that's the end of those. Also, by the way, this clip right here actually shows them hitting for the third time the Sarik Naval Facility with the same roundabout and road at the eastern side of the facility. So they have quite literally, like today even, like to clarify this, man, because we were talking about this a second ago, they have literally hit the same knocked out radar system again. This is the third time that they've hit it on film. The second time being yesterday in yesterday's strikes.
Yeah, it looks identical to me too. I was thinking that when I was seeing it there and glancing over at it, I was like, that looks very familiar right there, and I think it is.
It's identical, actually. This is the only naval facility that I know of that has this kind of profile, and also has a couple of extra support buildings around it, as well as the docks that are very unique. And this is quite literally the very same facility that was hit yesterday at Sarik, with the same radar tower getting hit again, meaning that it's being hit for the hell of it. It already was inoperable from what we can understand from yesterday's strikes and the strikes that were conducted weeks before that. But moving on from that and into the governmental statements from both sides, the President of the United States did make the following statement a little bit earlier. United States aircraft just struck Iranian missile and drone storage locations and coastal radar sites for violating the ceasefire agreement again. It is very possible that they will never learn. There may come a point where we are no longer able to be reasonable and will be forced to militarily complete the job that we very successfully started. If that happens, the Islamic Republic of Iran will no longer exist, which is a direct threat of war and a regime change within the Islamic Republic of Iran, reading it verbatim. We've also been able to see that within the Iranian side, they have made quite a large amount of statements over the day, which are also showing that they are moving away from the peace talks and starting to return back to the idea of war. According to Syed Mohammad Marandi, Iran will not allow the Trump regime to benefit from the MOU unless it swiftly abides by all of its commitments. Netanyahu and Trump are dragging the global economy toward the abyss, according to the Iranian claims. They then went out and made an additional statement today through Ibrahim al-Fakar that directed at the United States, you miscalculated and our patience has run out, so prepare for a long, endless night, which we're seeing right now in their attacks against U.S. forces in Kuwait and Bahrain. And we also were able to see one last statement that was put out by Mehr News Agency, which is largely affiliated with the IRGC, saying the following. Trump confirmed the violation of the ceasefire with Iran. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, following the blatant violation of the ceasefire and the country's attack on areas in southern Iran, announced that American aircraft targeted several missile and drone storage sites of Iran, as well as the country's coastal radars. So both sides are now stating that the other has violated the ceasefire, and they're getting ready to go in and start going high on the hog, basically, and go in pound for pound against each other into a full-blown conflict once more, which is generally giving us the understanding that the peace talks are not going that well, and it looks like we're going to be getting back into a resumption of the conflict between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States of America. We're going to be expecting that the Strait of Hormuz will probably be completely closed indefinitely once again here in the very near future, as it does seem that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States are quite literally back on the precipice of war. And right now, a lot of people are talking about the president's statements that the Islamic regime will no longer exist and the United States has to return back to conflict. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so right now we're seeing the U.S. make some crazy threats toward Iran, and honestly, they're actually kind of warranted at this point because Iran is playing the U.S. for fools right now, making all kinds of crazy statements, all kinds of crazy threats. They're attacking our U.S. bases in the Gulf states. I mean, Iran's doing everything they possibly can to tear this deal apart that favors their regime quite heavily, actually. So just to show you how insane Iran is, they're blowing up the deal that was actually favorable to them. That's crazy. But now the U.S. officials are threatening that Iran's regime will no longer exist if the ship attacks continue in the Strait of Hormuz. So what are your thoughts? 48% said it's simply a scare tactic. It's an empty bluff by the United States. 24% said the U.S. will just continue doing these love taps, as they call them, on the Hormuz coast. And 22% said the U.S. will follow through with that threat on Iran, and it is imminent at this point. So I don't think that threat in its entirety is going to be carried out. The whole no longer will exist thing, that is a very lofty goal for the United States to carry out on Iran. So I don't think it's going to be quite that severe, but I wouldn't call it an empty bluff at the same time either. I would say the U.S. will continue doing these love taps for now, and I would not be surprised to see a full-scale resumption of the war within days or maybe even weeks at this point. So the main situation, the main thing we can take out of this is war is back on the menu. The MOU did not last very long whatsoever, and Iran will not let it last. They're not. They're going to blow it up one way or another, and they're already doing that literally today as we speak. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the U.S. is probably going to have to return back to the conflict, and they will most likely get to full-blown strikes against the Iranians, because this seems basically what this is. This is basically the same track that Hezbollah and Israel is on. It's just with the United States and Iran directly instead of the smaller players in the conflict at this point. That's what it looks like to me. And the ceasefire deal between Hezbollah and Israel has not been able to stand longer than a couple of hours at a time, because either Hezbollah attacks Israel or the Israelis attack Hezbollah, and the entire thing's off and the guns are back up and running within minutes of that happening. And that looks to be what's happening right now, just in a slower form between Iran and the United States, is that both sides are saying that the other is breaking the ceasefire, both sides are attacking the other's interest within the region, and that's going to clearly signal the resumption of the conflict. So I think that it's not going to be an empty bluff, at least at this point, because I think that the track is laid that it's inevitable that the conflict must resume, whether both sides wanted to or not. They're both putting themselves into a position where they can only restart the conflict and try and continue it on to a successful conclusion, either where Iran comes out completely on top and the U.S. can't break the blockade in the Hormuz, or the much more successful option, especially for all of us here in the United States, the U.S. breaks the Iranian blockade on the Hormuz, and then we just start to bombard Iran from afar with our air forces until they eventually relent and start to make compromises with the United States. So that's generally what I would believe is going to be happening here in the near future from what we're seeing at the moment right now. But moving us on out of the Middle East and everything that's been going on here for the moment, we have been able to hear in some small news today that inside of Pakistan, at least 6 dead, including 3 Pakistani Rangers, following a militant assault on a paramilitary facility near to Muslimiyat, Karachi. The Rapid Response Forces and police units have neutralized the attackers and secured the area, and more details were emerging several hours ago of that incident.
That's just what we need. The war breaking out again. Also, by the way, did the Afghanistan-Pakistan thing ever come to an end before, or is it still going on? Because I haven't been keeping up with that one.
It's kind of simmering. Like, I think that's the best way we can describe it. It doesn't look like they've ever gotten into a full-blown peace deal. And every once in a while, the Taliban conducts some sort of an attack across the border, and then the Pakistanis barrage more Taliban positions. So we can describe the situation as ongoing and tense, but it's not an active conflict like we were covering right before the Iran war started.
Well, it sounds to me like it's creeping back toward a full-blown fisticuffs at this point. Sounds like it's getting back to that level. At least right now, I'm sure that'll have a pretty big response to that situation today.
Yeah, it sounds like this. There's definitely going to be some larger actions. Weirdly enough, this was in Karachi, which is also quite interesting. It's not within the Balochistan areas. And to make sure to show you all this, let me put this town name here in, so that way I can show you all exactly where this was. And so let me put that here. And so that was around this area of Karachi, within the northeastern area of the city. And usually when we hear of any sort of Iranian or Taliban actions, we usually hear of them within the Balochistan areas. And to give you all a little bit of background, because we need a refresher on this one, folks, we haven't talked about this one in months. The Taliban actually are not that big of a fan of the Pakistanis, because the Pakistanis are not Muslims like the Taliban believe they should be, and the Pakistanis believe the Taliban are not Muslims like the Pakistanis really are and the Taliban should be, so they don't really like each other a great deal. So the Taliban allows this little group called the Balochistan Independence Fighters, I believe is what they're called, or the Balochistan Liberation Front, the BLF, to operate from Afghani territory in the south near Kandahar, and they coordinate attacks inside of Afghan territory, and then they sneak across the border and conduct terrorist attacks inside of Pakistan. And then once they conduct those attacks, they conduct a hit and run for the large part, and pack back up, and they run right back across the border into Afghanistan, which gives them a bit of a reprieve from Pakistani counterattacks. But that all fell apart at the earlier part of this year, and the Taliban in Pakistan went to direct blows about that situation, and since then, the tensions have remained high. But even still, this attack remains outside the usual parameters of where we see the attacks happening, and that's a fairly interesting sort of a development. But it looks like the tensions are still running high, and casualties are still mounting between the two sides, even in what can be described as a bit of a lull in the fighting. But in the midst of that, we have even more breaking news coming out of Iraq and what appears to be the ongoing coup. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so we're getting some more details. We just got an image allegedly showing some people that have been arrested by the Iraqi security forces, and they're saying in the post here from World Source News that at least 15 individuals have been arrested inside of Baghdad, including a government minister, senior advisors, department directors, and members of the Iraqi parliament apparently have been arrested. That's the allegation right now. So if that turns out to be true, it sounds like a segment or a portion of the Iraqi government's being targeted by the security forces. So that seems to support the idea that a coup might be in operation as we speak, because I would imagine that all these individuals couldn't have committed a crime all at the same time to warrant an arrest in mass quite like this of members of the government. So it doesn't seem to be, like I see some people out there saying it doesn't seem like a coup, but this suggests right here that it is a coup, at least in my personal opinion. This is the first time we've gotten suggesting that it's very likely a coup. So, you know, it's up for debate. Of course, some people are still going to probably say it's not a coup. Well, we'll have to see how it unfolds. But Enforcer, what do you make of this new development?
It has to be one of two things at this point. This is either a coup that was about to be launched and it's failed and they're arresting all of the collaborators, or this is an ongoing coup by one element of the government and they're using the security forces to arrest the group that they're now overthrowing. It's one or the other at this point. That's quite clear. Because you don't go around arresting government ministers, senior advisors, department directors, and members of parliament just on a whim. I mean, you know, imagine this, folks. Imagine that these people, to put this into a U.S. perspective, were names that you knew. Like one day you just heard that the FBI moved in on the Capitol building, and right here, crouched down in the corner, is people like, you know, Ted Cruz or Nancy Pelosi or somebody like that. That clearly wouldn't be normal to have them arrested like that and have them literally in a line out here on the street. Something would clearly be amiss. And this is clearly amiss. This doesn't happen in normal governmental operations. And we haven't seen anything like this happen in Iraq in the 4.5 years that we've been on air covering the news. So this is clearly something.
I just wonder who is arresting who, because at this point the fog of the situation is still a little bit heavy right now. It's kind of hard to tell who's doing the arresting and who's being arrested. That's kind of the hard part to figure out right now. I honestly can't say with certainty whether or not this is a pro-Iran backed situation where maybe the Iranian aligned people are gaining momentum here and arresting people, or maybe it's the, you know, pro-Western people arresting Iranian aligned people. I really can't tell which one it is, to be honest with you. I'm hoping it's not a pro-Iran aligned coup, because that certainly wouldn't be good.
No, that really wouldn't be good. That would be pretty bad, especially for us. That basically, like, that means that the government that we set up from the invasion of Iraq will have fallen. And at that point, that would be a complete loss. Because right now, if y'all don't know, the Iraqi government isn't our biggest ally in the region, but they still generally are somewhat sympathetic or somewhat friendly, maybe is the best way to describe it, to the United States. That's why you see that a lot of the military equipment being used right now is Humvees and Abrams, is because we provide them a lot of that equipment, because the Iraqi government is generally in a position with the United States where they're friendly enough that we'll sell them weapons. Not the best stuff that we have, but we'll still sell them weapons in general. And so if the Iraqi government falls, and the side that's aligned with us falls, and a pro-Iranian government comes in the charge of Iraq, now we're going to start seeing that the situation is going to be getting a lot worse, because now Iran is going to actually have a large country directly bordering them that basically allows them a deeper foothold into the Middle East and near to our allies like the Kingdom of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Kuwait, and others that the Iranians could operate directly out of, because the Iraqis will be aligned with them and would give them authorization to do such a thing. But once again, folks, I gotta say, it looks like a coup. I mean, it walks like a duck. It walks like a duck. It talks like a duck. It's definitely a coup. So we don't know who's overthrowing who right now, though. That's the confusion that is involved in a coup. Someone's overthrowing somebody right now, but we have no clue who they are and what they're going to be bringing into power once they succeed.
Yeah, I was not expecting an Iraqi coup to break out tonight. Certainly wasn't expecting that. You know, Iran's been alluding to like making bigger moves in the region to try to put the U.S. on the back foot. Once again, we don't know who's doing the arresting, so it's too early to tell if it's Iran making a move here in Iraq. It's too early to tell with that. But hypothetically speaking, if it is Iran and it's Iran backed, and let's say it's a Shiite backed movement that's arresting people right now, that would certainly be putting the U.S. on the back foot because that means Iraq would be hostile territory at that point. Also, we have an embassy there, to say the least. We heard gunfire near the embassy earlier, just about an hour or two ago, and we heard gun battles breaking out too in the green zone, or at least near it. You know, no, we haven't gotten any official statements yet, by the way, from U.S. officials about this or any type of U.S. authority whatsoever. They're being largely quiet about this, so nobody's making any official statements. That's why there's so much fog about the situation right now, is because nobody knows what's going on. I'm not even sure if the officials know what's going on yet. It could be up for debate even with them.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. Embassy of, oh man, let's see. I'm trying to see if I can find any Iraqi Twitter pages from the government that might say something.
They haven't put anything out. I've already checked all those.
Damn, that's crazy. Then definitely something's going on. I mean, like, if no one's saying anything in Iraq right now, something is definitely going on, because the silence is concerning. Usually if something like this happens within like 20 to 30 minutes, there would be some sort of a written statement like, you know, we're conducting some sort of an action against these people for these reasons. But we're not even seeing that right now. So it's complete radio silence across the whole of the Iraqi government. And whatever is happening, it's unfolding basically in the quiet of the night.
And I see a lot of people saying that some news outlets are saying that politicians and businessmen are being arrested on suspicion of corruption. That doesn't mean it's an official operation, by the way. That could just be a cover story, and it's not being stated by an official source. It's being stated by news outlets. So they could just be speculating. We don't know really where they're getting that information from. So maybe it's an official government-backed operation against corruption. But here's the thing, folks. When there's a corruption scheme like this, I mean, to go start arresting like a huge swath of the Iraqi government all in one go, that seems a little bit overboard for suspicion of corruption. That seems like that's a lot. That's overkill, to say the least. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that statement coming out in the media about that. It could just be a cover, or it could be completely bogus for all we know.
It could be that that outlet was actually taken over by the coup leaders and they were told to put out that statement. That happens a lot. I mean, if you want to see that happening in real time, you can look at any African coup that happens when they take over a news station. They literally hijack the network. You've seen this many times, right? I mean, we've seen this a million times. Like in Mali, they'll hijack the central news network for the country, sit down in the chairs and go, we're in charge now and we're overthrowing the corrupt government officials because of bribery and whatnot. And they come up with all of these charges that sound legitimate, but these people are not the government. They're just making it sound like they have a legitimate claim to overthrow whoever's in charge right now. So that could be happening as well with the outlet. Once again, it's a coup. Fog of war is going to be a very big thing in this whole deal, and we're probably not going to get a clear image of what's going on until the dust settles and we figure out who ended up succeeding, either the government that's in charge right now or the coup leaders, and who's going to be in charge tomorrow. Until then, we're probably not going to have a good idea of what's going on in real time right now.
Yeah, I would say so. But right now, that's all of our breaking news on it. So if you'd like to continue with the regular news coverage, we're probably good to go.
All right, folks. And crazily enough, luckily enough, we're basically right on schedule right now. In the midst of all the breaking news that's been coming out, we're still dead on schedule, and we've been able to make it through the Middle East. All of the U.S.'s strikes, the Iranian strikes, all of the actions that have happened over the day, and what's going on in Baghdad right now. So it's now time for us to move on up into Eastern Europe and cover all of the major news and developments that are now happening up here. But before we get on into that news, I do have to say a humongous thanks. We are greatly appreciative to everybody who has been watching so far. We still have a lot of crazy news to go. If you do not leave, folks, because if you think that the Middle East segment is going to be less interesting than the Eastern European segment, or the Eastern European segment is going to be less interesting than the Middle East, it's definitely not. Like, it is without a shadow of a doubt a wild story that's happening up here today as well. And so we're going to be getting into that here in just a minute. But before we do, I do want to take a brief moment to get to talk to a couple of y'all and answer 3 questions from the chat before we get into the groundbreaking news that's coming out of Europe today. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so to get our first 3 super chats and thank the folks that are supporting the channel tonight, and then jumping right back to our breaking news, our first super chat of the night goes to Ken Conaway. And thank you very much, Ken, for that very generous $100 super chat, by the way. And we appreciate that support very, very much because it's you, the viewers, that keep us going night in and night out for 4+ years here on the YouTube channel. We do appreciate that, Ken. He said, Wedowee, Alabama, and long-term listening and first-time giving, and take one from the chat.
And a big shout out to you and a huge thanks to you for the support all the way from Alabama, our home state. And I got to say, humongous thanks to you so much for the incredible support and supporting the channel massively for your first time ever. It helps us to keep this thing running. It helps us to make this thing possible. And I got to say, a humongous thanks to you for enjoying it enough to make the thing a reality. Many people here on this channel who are watching right now, 22,000 people, are having this channel on air to be able to hear the news thanks to the folks like you who go out of your way to do something that nobody has to do, which is supporting the channel. When we run streams, for those who are new tonight, we do not run ads or sponsors on our live streams, meaning that every single time we go on air, every single night, we're not making a cent. The only way that we're able to make a dime, to be able to keep our lights on, pay our bills, and do this as a full-time job is through viewers like the amazing Ken Conaway right here, who is supporting this channel incredibly and helping us to keep this thing running. And it's folks like him and their amazing generosity, how they go out of their way to support the channel, that make it possible for everybody, whether they're supporting or not. We made the channel as free to play as possible for a reason, and so that way if people did enjoy the channel, they could support it, and if they didn't enjoy it, they didn't have to ever support it. And I gotta say, it's an amazing thing to know that folks like you can enjoy the channel enough to make it possible for everybody here, thanks to your support. And so we will be making sure to take one from the chat in your honor. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the one from the chat is going to go to none other than Philip Southern, who said, any chance that the Senate is now consulting with the Pentagon in order to pre-approve whichever operations are happening?
There's a bit of a chance, but I feel like Matthew would probably be able to explain that a little bit better, considering that he's the political science expert by degree. So Matthew, take it away.
So generally speaking, to the way I understand it works, the Senate would not directly liaise with the Pentagon. They would generally look to the executive branch and the president's office to get those updates. So it's probably not happening that way. It would be my guess. If the Senate needs answers from the Pentagon, they can subpoena people or ask them to come testify in these private committee meetings or in an open session. But generally not a direct liaison between, or not a direct constant liaison between the Pentagon and the Senate, at least to my understanding. So I would say probably not.
I would assume so as well, because I was going to say, really, the Senate can only tell the president, okay, we're good with you doing general military actions against this group. You can't, they can't get particular enough to say you can bomb this, but you can't do that. As far as the Senate is concerned, because at that point, they're largely taking on the mantle of the commander-in-chief. The Senate largely goes, or the Congress as a whole, goes on the broad strokes of, does this conflict require action? Yes or no? And then if the answer is yes, they then tell the president, okay, we're fine with you doing whatever you need to deal with that problem. And then the president is the one who is charged with the responsibility of dealing with that in great detail. And then he's the one who talks to the Pentagon about the strikes, the actions that are to follow, and whatnot. And then they might report that back to the Congress on the details of what's happening. But that's generally how I'd understand how it would go. So I hope that does address the live chat well. And a humongous thanks to you once again for support, Ken Conaway, for that unbelievable and impressive support. And with that, we have more breaking news coming out right now. So, Matthew, what do we got?
Okay, so right now we are getting some brand new information that allegedly there's been more explosions heard by eyewitnesses on the ground in Bahrain just minutes ago, but I'm waiting for more confirmation of that. So I'm seeing here that there's no official confirmation of this, but it's being reported by, like I said, eyewitnesses on the ground in Bahrain that they're hearing explosions in the area. So it could be possible that another wave of strikes from Iran is taking place on Bahrain right now. I've not seen an official announcement of the sirens being sounded, though, which is a little bit odd about that. So take this one for what you will, but right now it sounds like Bahrain could be under a second wave of attacks.
Mr. President, they've attacked Bahrain a second time. Why? But beyond that, I gotta say, we'll be watching that story with great interest. Hopefully we'll get some video and picture evidence of that to corroborate the story or to disprove it. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And moving into our second super chat here, this one is going to go to none other than RCH Technologies. And thank you, good sir, as well, for that generous $50 support. And we do appreciate that very much. And he said, howdy again from Texas, former Army 19 Delta 85-93, and have a cold beer and some tacos on me.
Oh, wow, you were a Hawk missile operator. That's really cool. That's really neat, actually. There's a couple of those still running in Ukraine over there. And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for support RCH Technologies. A big shout out to Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. And we do thank you incredibly for your support and helping this channel to keep it running and keeping us on air tonight. And we will make sure to have some tacos on you. I don't really drink a whole lot. I can't drink because of my medications. But outside of that, before I even was on blood pressure medicine, I never did drink any beer or anything else really for that matter. But I do thank you for the support for tacos. I'll have to take that money and put more of it towards tacos because I love tacos. Tacos are delicious. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support RCH Technologies, and I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting on into all of the news out of Eastern Europe.
All right, and this one's going to go to Corey Weekle. And thank you very much, Corey, for that 50 as well. And we do appreciate that. Very generous of you, and we do appreciate it. And Corey said, longtime listener and lurker, and thanks for all y'all do to keep us informed.
And a big thanks to you for the support, an American lacquer. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Corey, and enjoying the channel and thanking us for everything we do, because we try our best. We always make sure that the news we're putting out is the most well-researched that we can, that we try and make sure that the information is as thoroughly sparsed, that we're putting the story together with everything that we have, and also analyzing it as thoroughly as we possibly can with a realistic sort of an outcome. And I hope that we've been able to do that pretty well on the fly tonight, because tonight's been a breaking news stream and also a normal scheduled stream all in one. And it's definitely been a lot to juggle, but hopefully we've been making it sensible and reasonable coverage even in the midst of that. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support, Corey, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on out of this question segment and on into the rest of the news that we have, particularly from Eastern Europe. We have gotten a lot of significant developments here today, and we're going to be making sure to get into them, starting with our largest one. We have been able to hear that the Ukrainian Armed Forces has started its second day of its 40-day strike campaign against the Russian Federation, and today the sun has risen on a Russia that appears to be in the process of changing forever. Ukrainian drones and missiles have struck and hit a lot of targets inside of the western regions of the Russian Federation, including one of the most important attacks of the day, which was an FP-5 Flamingo cruise missile attack against the refinery at the city of Slavyansk-na-Kubani within the Krasnodar Krai Oblast. This refinery here is a somewhat large one and a significant one for the Russian Federation within this region, and it also produces a significant amount of refined fuels as its output. We have seen that this refinery has been attacked in the past several times by Ukrainian forces, but it has been about a year since it was hit last by Ukrainian drone and missile strikes. However, an FP-5 Flamingo did impact the area of the Slavyansk-na-Kubani refinery and has burned the thing almost to the ground. We'll be showing y'all more of the video and picture evidence that we have in these multitude of clips showing the smoke and raging inferno that's been caused by the impacts of the Flamingo or Flamingos onto this refinery. It appears that
Also, by the way, that the locals are saying it's a Flamingo strike, but some people are claiming that maybe they misidentified the jet drones possibly. So it's kind of hard to tell, but the explosion may not have been Flamingos, at least at this one single target right here.
Oh, okay. So it might have been a bar, is just what you're saying.
Yeah, it could have been. You know, they sound similar, like because they both have jet engines on board. Granted, the Flamingo missile has a larger jet engine, but the locals really can't distinguish between the two. They have a hard time telling.
I see. But here's the other clip of the refinery fire. Regardless whether it be bars or flamingos, the damage appears to be quite severe. Moving us on into the next clip, we also were able to see the geolocation of the POV and where they were looking at the refinery, which does confirm that this was the refinery at Slavyansk-na-Kubani. We also were able to get this last picture here, once again showing the blaze of the refinery, which is quite large. This was one of the biggest attacks of the day, and also RCH Technologies. I did get confused because I actually quickly Googled 19 Delta because I was like, what MOS is that? And it came up with the first result being, oh, it's a Hawk operator. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. was like, that's wild. I just went and pulled it up again, and every other search result rarer than the first one says it's Cavalry Scout. So big apologies to you there. But outside of that, it does appear that the Slavonsk Kobani refinery's hit was the largest one as far as damage is concerned for the day. But we also were able to get follow-up information on the strike that was conducted in Volgograd against the factory that was stated to be involved in defense production for the Russian armed forces. The factory has been blown to pieces by this two-hit Flamingo strike that we saw yesterday. We were able to confirm that 2 Flamingos appear to have hit this factory, with a 3rd Flamingo apparently hitting somewhere else inside the city, which we haven't been able to get picture and video evidence of yet. But this is the remains of the Titan Barakati defense plant in Volgograd. The Barakati defense plant within northern Volgograd, seen right here, is a fairly significant one. Actually, hold up. I don't think that's it. Hold up. Let me make. Here it is. This is the Titan Barakati defense plant right here, just a little bit further north than the metallurgical plant. This facility was fairly important, as we were told that it apparently produced a significant amount of equipment for the Russian defense sector. And also, we were able to see a little bit of additional proof here of the hit here in this clip, showing the FP5 Flamingo slamming into the factory and causing the damage that we just had the aftermath picture of just a moment ago. Here's that video.
Damn.
Those flamingos have got a punch.
Yeah, I would say so. That's wild. And what was this location again that was hit?
This was the Titan Barakati defense plant. Apparently, it was involved in the production of some sort of propellants, motors, and things like that for missiles, from what I was able to find out.
Yeah, it's a serious hit when that thing goes up. It almost looks like an oil depot going up, but it's just purely the explosives from the missile.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the damage of that. It wiped out the entire assembly floor.
Yeah. Yeah, really, it severed the steel or mangled everything. It looks like a hurricane or a tornado got a hold of it. But yeah, it's a devastation there for sure.
Like the roof collapsed, the walls were bent outwards from the explosion. I'm guessing that everything on the assembly line down on the floor has been destroyed as well from the explosion and the fire. I mean, that quite literally knocked out an entire factory with 2 flamingos. The whole factory. And this is the whole factory right here. I mean, there's such a large part of the assembly line and also the production processes that have been completely wiped out by yesterday's attack that this factory will most likely be inoperable indefinitely because of the damage, most likely to the critical machinery and machining works that were inside of the building, which will render the entirety of the system inoperable. So a very successful attack from yesterday. We've also been able to hear that outside of Volgograd and elsewhere throughout the Russian Federation, that there was another strike, another alert more so, that came out of the Kerch Bridge area of drones that were flying in the area. We also were able to hear that within the area of Simferopol, it appears that there was another attack on this city, which we were able to see a brief clip of right here. Not really a lot to speak of. We heard the boom in the distance, but that was about it. There was also an additional report that the Saki thermal power plant came under attack, and there were 16 explosions with flashes of light within an hour, which is leading people to believe there was a multitude of drones that flew to the facility and then exploded onto it. There's one of the explosions right there. Moving us on from that, and that power infrastructure hit, the Ukrainians also hit and destroyed a bridge near to the town of Razdolny within northern Crimea. And this is very interesting. This is also showing the systematic campaign by Ukrainian forces to destroy every single bridge that they can. Razdolny is not on a major highway. The bridge near Razdolny, I believe, is somewhere on this roadway right about here. I believe it's very close to the town of Razdolny. Actually, this is the one right here. This is the bridge. So we can see that this bridge was knocked out, and it looks like the Ukrainians are trying to knock out and destroy every single bridge from the Armyansk and Chanhar Gap and then working their way on south. So if the Russians even get one bridge operational, say at a major choke point like Chanhar or Armyansk, those trucks are then going to have an even further difficult time making it to where their distribution points are in Crimea, because most of the bridges leading to those areas have also been destroyed as well. So the Ukrainians are systematically ripping apart every single piece of critical infrastructure in the entirety of Crimea, one bridge at a time, one power plant at a time, one substation at a time, one fuel depot at a time. The situation is already desperate as is, and even though the Russians were able to restore some of their key supply corridors or arteries, we're going to see that most of the capillary supply lines, where the supplies are distributed to their final endpoint, are also not operable. Therefore, the supply situation would still be dire in most of the peninsula. We've also been able to see, moving on out of Crimea, and on into the western area, or the heartland of the Russian Federation, that there was also a significant Ukrainian attack that was conducted on the town of Shebekino. It appears that from the footage we were able to see right here, some sort of a jank, and I mean jank, fuel warehouse was targeted and destroyed by Ukrainian drones today, which is what led to the major fire we saw in the other pictures that we're about to show y'all. We can already see that the fire had started by one of the original drone impacts, and more drones started to flock to the scene to also hit and further spread the damage at this pretty jank Russian military fuel depot.
Honestly, it's kind of hard to tell if it's really like uniquely jank or not, because everything in Russia looks jank as hell. It's like, everything in Russia looks like it's been pieced together out of like junkyard parts when it comes to their military industry out here. So, some people say that missile strikes improve the look of the place, how janky they usually are.
Man, this sign actually says, stop. Like, bro, like, no joke. Like, it says, the O was actually blurred out, like painted over or something, so you can tell the paint doesn't match right there. But that literally would say "stop" in Russian. I mean, I bet you the Russians in that facility are begging, "Stop, please!" Oh man, and I mean, this thing turned into a burning inferno. It was seen all the way from Belgrade today. But to show y'all a little bit more of it, there's the original start of the fire, and that's what it looked like later on the day, all the way from Belgrade, which is about 20 miles north up the road. We also were able to see this clip as well, showing the fire once again filmed from the city of Belgrade. And this additional clip as well.
Man, this audio right here is so crispy, I could literally hear the fly buzzing past the mic.
Man, they have that high-end microphone. Good thing they got it before the sanctions, because I bet they can't get that kind of quality anymore. Those Baofangs, they just don't really have that kind of quality built in them. We also were able to see that Gubkin was also hit as well in North Belgrade, with some sort of smoke rising here as well, although it's unclear what was hit around Gubkin. Gubkin, which is an absolutely goofy name for a town, is a smaller residential city within the northern area of Belgrade Oblast, near to the mines that exist between there and the town, the larger town that is, of Stary Oskol, which we can see over here. We don't really know what was hit in the field surrounding it. It might have been an air defense system, because we don't really see anything else of any strategic value that could have been hit and burnt within the area of Gubkin. But moving us on out of that town within northern Belgrade, we also were able to see the map work of the Ukrainian drone attacks that were being conducted over the day, which we've already started to cover right now, with missiles and drones and their flight paths being documented here on the map. A large amount of them once again went towards the Moscow area, but it looks like most of them skirted around the city and started to head for targets even further east inside the Russian Federation. We haven't heard of the impacts on those sites yet at the moment, and those drones might still be in the air making their way to their targets. They're pretty deep inside of Russia, and these drones only fly about 70 miles an hour, so a target 700 miles in Russia is 10 hours away by the speed of that drone. It also appears that we just got, actually, speaking of which, while I was talking about that, it looks like some of the drones have finally just made it past Moscow to Yaroslavl, and it appears that Matthew is getting news of that while I was just saying that right now. So Matthew, what do we got?
So speak of the devil, but in this case, speak of the Ukrainians. They've just arrived in the city of Yaroslavl, and they're bearing gifts. And the gifts have arrived, and the gifts were dropped right on top of the Yaroslavl oil refinery. Oh my. But as you can see, though, in our picture here, Yaroslav is that smoke plume you see out there in the distance in this picture right here. And Yaroslavl has been hit multiple times over. It's a very crucial oil refinery for the Russian Federation. It's one of the largest and most strategically important petroleum processing plants. It's over 700 kilometers of the Ukrainian border, and this is a critical place that they could not afford to lose right now. It looks like it's been hit again. It's hard to tell exactly what has been hit on the location of the refinery. It could be a main condenser. It could be the main stack. It's kind of hard to tell, but it's definitely been hit, though, from what we can tell. But Enforcer, what say you?
It looks like the Ukrainians are still going on their 40-day campaign. This is now day 2.5. Mind you all, of the 40-day campaign to bring Russia to its knees. And we've already seen that the Volgograd military factories have been hit and destroyed. We've also seen that the Slovyansk-na-Kubani refinery was hit today and largely knocked out or destroyed. And now we're seeing that the Yaroslavl oil refinery, one of the largest in the Russian Federation, has also now been hit as well and might be in the process of getting completely knocked out. Let me go pull up Russian refineries list here really quickly. And let me see if I can get... Oh, let's see here. a list of them from their largest to their smallest. So, let's see here. Anyone got the stats on that? Oh,
It's
dang.
the fifth largest refinery overall in the Russian Federation. So that's by oil refining capacity, by the way. It apparently, according to what I'm reading here, it processes about 15 million tons annually of primary crude right here. So that's why it's the fifth largest. I believe the largest refinery in Russia as a whole, I believe isn't that the Omsk refinery, I believe?
Let me pull it up. I want to make sure before I say it. Largest refinery in Russia. That would be, let's see here. 1 second. I want to go. I don't want to use the AI answer. That thing would be full of shit. But let's see here. The United States, Russia. Where's anything in Russia? So Russia. Oh, damn. Let's see here. Hold up. I gotta go to Russia. Try and find the information here. It's the Antipinsky refinery, apparently. Let's see. It's one of the largest. It's not the largest, so that's not the biggest one either. I actually don't know where the biggest one is. I'm still trying to find that right now.
So I'm pretty sure that the Omsk one is the largest by capacity. I think the Omsk refinery does about 20 million tons a year, I think, or something like that. So it's one of the biggest. Those are very large ones, by the way. Yaroslavl is huge. Omsk is huge. Ryazan's a big one. There's several big ones, including the Moscow refinery, which is currently, no longer, in functioning order, thanks to the Ukrainian attack that took place about a week ago. So yeah, this 40-day period is about to be really painful for Russia. I'm not sure how they're going to survive it.
Actually, yeah, I would say the Omsk refinery is definitely the biggest because this is the biggest one I've ever seen. I mean, I have to zoom out basically to the level of seeing the city of Omsk to even look at the size of this thing. So this probably is the biggest one just by size alone, which is kind of crazy because if you go to Shreveport, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, actually, you can actually see a fairly large refinery here. Which isn't as big as the one even in Omsk. It's half the size. So a little bit interesting with that to see that is the largest one. Maybe the Ukrainians might be able to eke out the range to hit it, but it is very deep in Russia. I mean, extremely deep in Siberia. But moving us on out of that bit of news from the Yaroslavl area and the confirmation of the hit there live on air right now, we are also hearing that sirens are once again sounding in Bahrain, and it looks like another round of Iranian drone and missiles are now entering the airspace, attempting to attack the U.S. bases and possibly Bahraini facilities that are inside of the country. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and giving y'all any developments on that situation once we're able to get them. Moving us on from that, though, and on into Moscow, we were able to see that Ramenskoye came under attack. It didn't come under attack. There was just a long fuel line here today. An endless one, as usual. We also were able to see outside of the Moscow area that we have been able to get some information on the possible coup attempt or the mutiny that was about to be conducted by a so-called Alexander Lunin. Apparently, according to some reports we've been able to get today, it looks like many sources are starting to state that Alexander Lunin apparently has been arrested by Russian FSB authorities and is going to be spending 11 days in jail while they try and figure out what they're going to charge him with. That appears to be the statements that are coming out from multiple sources. We have two of them that are largely repeating the same story from people inside of Russia, and we have been able to confirm that the FSB did ransack his house looking for anything, flash drives, computers, any sort of communications or internet systems, and have apparently seized all of them in the ongoing investigation against him. To remind many who may not have been here yesterday for this, Alexander Lunin made a video where he stated that the treatment by the Russian government of the Russian soldiers was absolutely unacceptable, and either Putin was going to meet with him within the next 48 hours, or Alexander Lunin and his men were going to turn their guns against the government and start to overthrow Putin and the Putin regime. Not long afterwards, we were able to see that went viral on social media in the Russian Federation and gained something akin to over 10 million likes, which is more than 10% of the Russian Federation backing his statements and also supporting him in his claim, which got significant public attention. The Kremlin took credit that the threat was given to them, and then we saw that the FSB started to react immediately. We saw that Alexander Lunin tried to back off of his claims, and since then, it appears that nobody has been able to communicate with him, at least according to word that we were able to get earlier today, and it looks like the FSB may have actually arrested him. Right now, a lot of people are saying, as usual, that this guy is about to get the window treatment, and I would not be against wants that sort of an idea as far as what's going to be happening to him, because we've seen that many of people who have done far less than this have gotten the window treatment in Russia. So a lot of people right now are wondering what is going to be happening to Alexander Lunin and the mutiny that it looked like it was about to be conducted, now that it seems that he's gone radio silent and the Russian government may have pounced to make sure that this coup or mutiny could not be even attempted by Lunin and his supporters. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this situation right now, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so this guy's whereabouts is really not really that certain, really. Some people are saying he's been detained for 11 days. Some people says that he's gone missing. Some people says he's already deceased. Nobody's really sure what his state is, but he's certainly not free from the looks of it. All the allegations are is something has happened to him, and that was obviously to be expected. But what has happened in your opinion? 47% said Russia might have done something really bad, if you know what I'm getting at. 45% said Putin will lock him in the gulag, and 4% said he'll probably be let go soon and just simply let free. And, you know, when this guy came out and made the allegations and allegedly said he was going to try to, like, go do something to the Kremlin, everybody pretty much knew what was about to happen after that. That wasn't too hard to predict. So I would imagine it's probably true. He probably is in Russian custody, at least right now. They'll probably try to put him on a show trial or something. And then after that, who knows what the hell is going to happen after that. You know, I'm not sure if Russia would so blatantly dispatch him, if you know what I'm saying, just in the wide open like that. But, you know, Putin has done worse stuff to people over the course of time. I mean, for example, Prigozhin, I mean, his plane crashed, and it was a very strange plane crash, to say the least, and it took out him and his buddy, Utkin, on the plane. So Putin doesn't put up with stuff like that, and he's probably going to make an example out of that guy, so that way other people don't follow suit behind him. He'll probably try to make an example out of him, so it's probably going to be quite severe. But Enforcer, what say you?
He might end up going out from a headache, polonium T, a blood clot falling out of a window, a heart attack, spontaneous combustion, spontaneous explosion. There are many ways that the Russians take people like this out once they start to pose a threat to the government. And now that he's gotten a significant amount of social media notoriety in Russia, they can't let him back out because a lot of people are going to rally around him. And then they're going to try and possibly do something still in support of the guy, and also looking at how weak the Russian government would appear if they released him. So they're clearly going to be probably taking the guy out. That's what I would say. I'd be with the 47%. He's probably too dangerous to be put back out in the public or probably in prison, at least in Putin's mind. And so they're most likely going to dispatch him to make sure to make an example of him and stop other Russians from trying to imitate his actions or his footsteps to lead him to where he is right now. So I would be with the 47% for that reason. But moving us on out of that news in Moscow, we've also been able to hear additionally that the foreign minister of Poland has also been stating that there are significant warnings once again that calamities and conflict could be occurring between NATO and the Russian Federation in the near future. As according to the foreign minister of Poland, Sikorski, Russia may be preparing an operation under a foreign flag to attack NATO. According to his direct quote, Russians may organize some operation under a foreign flag on Russian territory to get a pretext to strike one of the NATO countries. So right now, the foreign minister Sikorski of Poland is still saying that there is a significant threat that at some point Russia may fabricate an incident to justify a strike on NATO, or that they may try some sort of hybrid strikes on NATO to start a larger conflict with NATO forces. It's, of course, a still concerning situation, and we'll be seeing if the Russians ever follow through on that. There is a decent chance that they might. We've also been able to hear that the Prime Minister of Serbia, aka Chudjak, Alexander Vucic, has stated that he will resign within weeks, paving the way for an early general election.
Can we see the meme up close?
Let's see. Hold up. Let me go get it.
It's right there, man. It's right there in front of you.
Oh, that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's something else right there. I think that it's kind of hard to tell. This could be the original version. I can't tell if it's the altered version or the original, but it looks pretty accurate.
Man,
So that's the news we have for y'all for tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed the show. Make sure y'all hit that bell button so y'all get notified whenever we come on air. And make sure y'all hit that subscribe button and that follow button so we can actually start getting pushed out there more. And make sure y'all hit that share button so y'all and share them on y'all's platforms if y'all don't mind. I really appreciate all y'all that dropped in tonight. I really appreciate the people that actually are going to be watching this show. Make sure y'all drop that